Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Golden Shovels Expert Webinar. We are really excited to bring you this webinar about what kind of economic developer do you want to be. My name is Kirsten McPherson. I am the Marketing Director for GSA, and I'll be moderating and leading the panel for the discussion ahead. So economic developers are continuously leading their communities through growth and transformation. This webinar is going to lead you through 5 economic developers and some of their past projects that they have worked on and different leadership styles that they have shown in their community. And hopefully some takeaways of this is going to be some learning objectives for you guys to take back to your own communities. So I would like to introduce to you the panelists. We have Brian Hanson with Apex. We have Lisa Hurley with York County Development Corporation. Chuck Sexton with One East Kentucky, Rick Alley with Mills County, Iowa, and then Dave Simonsen with JOCO First and New Growth Alliance. The first topic that we are going to work on today is going to be what the economic development stories are. So we're going to lead back through starting with Brian, who is going to have kind of story and just do an introduction about him and his community and his past success as an economic developer. So Brian, I will pass this off to you and we will go from there.
Very good. Thank you, Kirsty. Good morning, everyone. Brian Hanson, CEO at Apex, the Area Partnership for Economic Expansion. Apex is based in Duluth, Minnesota, and we serve a 10-county area that includes 2 states, Minnesota and Wisconsin, Northeast Minnesota and Northwest Wisconsin. Our mission is to drive investment throughout the region. And a couple of things are unique about Apex in that way. First of all, we really focus on the business case with every project that we work on. So how is it that our region is the best place to grow a business, and what is the business case that supports that? We are a private sector driven organization, which is also a little bit unique. We certainly partner with the public sector, but our members are all private sector. And the other component that really relates to that business case is that we're a research-driven organization. So we carefully sort of select the industries that we are going to work with, whether it's on an expansion basis or an attraction basis. And then we focus heavily on those specific industries. From a project standpoint today, I really want to talk about primarily about an attraction project that we're involved with that involved bringing a 400-person aircraft maintenance facility to the city of Duluth and the impacts on that project for our region. But it also certainly supported many of the existing companies that are part of an aviation cluster, and in that way, it impacted existing businesses. And then the third thing that we really work on, in addition to attraction and working with existing businesses, is workforce development, and how this project actually helped. It was one of the reasons why we spurred our own workforce development tool in the region, along with another public sector partner, the folks at the Northspan Group, to help bolster the workforce both for this company, but also many others in the region. So those are the things that I'll be talking about as we delve into this, Kirsty, and maybe I'll turn it over to other speakers to move forward with their story.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Brian. Again, we'll kind of move back through some of Brian's leadership and stories in a moment. Next up, we have Lisa Hurley.
Good morning, everyone. This is Lisa. I'm with York County Development Corporation, and York is located in Nebraska, about a 45-minute drive, 45 miles from Lincoln, located on the interstate. We are a public-private partnership, so I do receive money from some of our communities as well as the county, and then a large I call them investors. They're investing in the future of our community instead of calling them members. we made that transition slowly over the last 3 years. But we focus on business development, you know, the recruitment, the succession planning, the startups, the expansions, all of that. And then our other two focuses are housing and workforce, which is very closely tied. We've had workers accept jobs from out of state and then turn them down when they're not able to find housing. So in the last 5 years, housing has become a priority for YCDC. One of the projects I'm going to spend some time on when we get to that point is Pellet Technology USA, which was a startup in another community as a research and development in Nebraska. And then when it came for their first production facility, they went through an RFI process. And with it being their first production facility, there were some challenges as we proceeded through the project. And then if we have time, I can talk about our housing strategies. We have a rather large one we're working on right now. So that's basically what we are. You know, our mission is to promote and develop quality economic development or quality growth in the county.
Excellent. Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Yeah. So more from Lisa on all of those really great stories here in a moment. And now I will have Chuck do his introduction.
Thanks. I appreciate that. This is Chuck Sexton. I'm president and CEO of One East Kentucky. One East Kentucky is a regional economic development organization. We serve 9 counties in what is considered the coal fields region of eastern Kentucky. So Appalachia certainly. And this region historically has relied heavily on coal dependence, which the layman's term being thermal coal. And if you've kept up with the news, you know that we've had a massive amount of job loss over the past 4.5 years, to the tune of about 12,000 jobs lost in this region. I was recruited over here originally from the western part of Kentucky. I've been in economic development for a little over 8 years. Began in economic development when I was 28 and learned from someone who'd been in multiple states, and personally had a drive to go on to lead a regional organization, which I was recruited to here. They had never done economic development in eastern Kentucky before because they were so reliant on the coal industry. So our organization's focus is on strategy development, capacity building, and industrial recruitment. Really the strategy development and capacity building in support of building a business case in an attractive region for new industries to locate in and make investment. Over the past 2.5 years that I've been here, my focus has been on really understanding the coal workforce. We are a little unique country right now. We have a massive amount of workers who are highly skilled and ready for jobs. I know a lot of my brothers and sisters in economic development are facing workforce shortages because we've come out of the recession and there's been a lot of progress in many areas, and we're really the opposite of that. So one of the first things we did, I instituted a 27-county workforce study of the region to break down the skill sets coming out of the coal mining workforce and how we translated that and understood that, did all the research necessary to identify what industry sectors that these coal miners can transition into the easiest, as well as matching that with cluster maps of industry within an 8 to 9 hour drive time of the region so that we could come up with a laser focused target industry sectors to go after. We've had some good success over the last 2.5 years. A lot of that beginning part of that was planning, and I can talk about that later, the planning part of it, what it takes to get stakeholders together, help them understand, to be patient. But last year was really our first full year of true economic development work, and we announced a little over $400 million worth of new investment in the region by manufacturers and close to 1,400 new jobs in the region. So looking forward to discussing this and answering some questions today.
Great. Thanks, Chuck. your story is quite remarkable just based off of everything that's happening in the industry. Next, I would like to introduce Rick Alley from Mills County, Iowa. And Rick, I will let you do your introduction and then we'll move into the leadership story.
Sure. This is Rick Allely. I am the director of Mills County Economic Development Foundation, which sits on the southeast portion of the greater Omaha metropolitan region in western Iowa. Traditionally, Mills County has not had a organized economic development effort. Much like Chuck, I was recruited to this position, bringing over 30 years of economic development experience on both the public and the private side to help them implement an organized economic development initiative. Part of that was taking a publicly funded organization that was solely funded through the County Board of Supervisors and working with a board of 12 people representing the entire county, looking at reorganization and just how the organization should move forward. So we had to work through the bylaws, the accounting, funding mechanism, getting everybody educated so everyone was on the same page through a strategic planning process, and so that we had the total buy-in. I've been here 18 months, and within that 18 months, we have put together the organization and are moving into what I would call our main focus for project areas. We are looking at and actually actively have gained control of 3 core focus areas with shovel-ready sites. Small sites of 100 acres or less, and then we're focusing on some medium-sized sites up to the 900 plus acre, and then a mega site. Taking on all 3 initiatives at once is an aggressive goal for an organization that is brand new. But with Interstate 29, Interstate 80, and the mainline BNSF running east-west as well as north-south, we figure we are perfectly situated to focus on the logistics industry. With Lisa, the other area we're focusing on, besides just the industrial component and having those sites that are attractive to those new employers and tax base, is the housing area. Mills County is one of the faster growing areas in Iowa, and it tends to be of one of the highest out of the 99 counties and the top 5 of the counties for income, household income as well with this growth. So our schools are seeing growth. So we're focusing on the community development aspect too, making sure all of our communities have healthy main streets, looking to attract new housing areas as well as focusing on those industrial components with the new sites.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rick. You all will be able to hear more of Rick's story here in a moment. Next up, I would like to introduce Dave Simonsen with JOCO First and New Growth Alliance. Dave is just joining us, so Dave, I'll have you do a quick introduction about you and your area, and then we'll move on to some of the economic development success stories that you have had.
Sure. My one quick question. I do have a PowerPoint. Do you want me to do that now, or do you want me to do that later?
We might have to just send that out separate, just because of, or actually we can do it later. I can make you the presenter for the screen. That's not a problem. We'll do that in the second go around.
All right. My name is Dave Simonsen. I'm the CEO for JOCO First, which is the economic development arm for Johnson County, Wyoming. As far as my focus for this presentation goes, I've been doing economic development for 20 years. I did, prior to coming here, I was with the state of Wyoming, and now doing the local as well as a regional effort. The regional effort is what I wanted to talk about. So the New Growth Alliance. That's what the slides will be about later, so I won't go into great detail, but the effort's been we have the same problem that everybody else in the country has. We have workforce issues. Our base is small as far as workforce, and our surface area is large. We're a 3-county entity: Campbell County, Gillette, which is Gillette, Wyoming; Sheridan County, which is Sheridan, Wyoming; and then Johnson County, which is Buffalo, Wyoming. The 3 communities came together, saw the need for regionalism. Johnson County is under 10,000 people, and we have a huge landmass. Without a regional effort, we have no way of attracting businesses because our workforce numbers are so low. So it was a relatively easy sell. It's not been a totally smooth effort, but thanks to the partnerships that we've had, we have proven to be successful, and I'll go into more detail about that farther down when I do the PowerPoint. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. Okay, and now, so the moment that everyone's been waiting for, we'll go back through, and everyone will spend a little bit more time talking about those stories that they did during their intro. And so at the end, you'll be able to ask questions, and then you can just type those in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we get that to the right person. And so that'll be about the last 15 minutes. So Brian, I do believe that you are the first up, and you'll have the chance to dive a little bit more into what you were talking about in the beginning.
Okay, thank you very much, Kirsty. I really appreciate it. So I already alluded to what I really want to talk about today is an attraction project. I've had the good fortune of working in economic development for the local utility, for the state of Minnesota, also for the city of Duluth, and now with Apex. And this project actually started when I was at the city of Duluth, and it followed me a bit to Apex. And in fact, the company, and their name is AAR, is a investor member in Apex today. Kind of like Lisa, we're making that transition to investors as well, and we call our folks who are participating financially in the organization investor members for that reason. The company AAR is based in the Chicago area. Depending on the year, they are the #1 or #2 maintenance, repair, and overhaul. If I use the acronym MRO, which all of us in economic development have many acronyms, MRO is maintenance, repair, and overhaul. And they are one of the top MRO providers in the world. And depending on the year, they're often the top maintenance, repair, and overhaul provider. Duluth had the maybe fortune now, but at one time misfortune of being the home to a maintenance repair facility that was closed by Northwest Airlines. You may remember Northwest Airlines. They were based in the Twin Cities. They're now part of Delta, merged with Delta. They had a maintenance facility that was closed down about 12 years ago now. And that facility really, sitting up at our airport, roughly 200,000 square foot maintenance facility, just sort of stuck out as a bad symbol of a need to create jobs in our region. And so when I went to work for the city of Duluth, we owned the facility. It was built by the state for Northwest Airlines. When Northwest closed it, they paid off their responsibilities to the state, and the state really didn't want to own a 200,000 square foot hangar in Duluth. And so it was transferred to the city of Duluth. The city of Duluth made some efforts to find a new tenant for that building that they owned. As you can imagine, there's some pretty sophisticated infrastructure in there and a large building that needed maintenance to the tune altogether of about $15,000 a month of cost for that building. So of course, when I came in and joined the team at the city, it was a high priority to find a tenant for that facility. At the time, I had the opportunity to work with the folks at the Airport Authority, with Apex, the organization that I'm able to lead today, and other partners to figure out how are we going to land the right tenant? What does that right tenant look like? It's on the airstrip, so of course the FAA wants it to be aviation related. You know, we had individuals who were seeking everything from mini storage to indoor tennis, as you can imagine, in that kind of huge facility. But we knew that the best way to add value in that building for our community was to do what it was designed to do, which was maintenance and overhaul of aircraft. So we started on what was almost a half a year of research. We identified industry experts who could come in. These are the kind of folks who, when you go to a trade show, they're the ones who are delivering this sort of plenary session on the state of the industry. So we kind of went to the top. We worked with them to put together a list of the companies, and really for a facility like that and the detailed nature of that facility to provide aircraft maintenance, it's a list of about 25 companies in the whole world. And at the top was a publicly traded company that we could see a lot of information, and almost all of it very, very good and very compelling about AAR. And so we went to a trade show where we knew they were participating. We had done our research. We understood what the cost structure needed to look like in order to help them be successful. Unfortunately, we also understood that the industry was not in a heavy growth mode, that we were going to really need to help make our facility more compelling than facilities elsewhere. It's also of note that we're competing with, at the time, lots of facilities that formerly served the military, and that were also available, and other communities were doing what we were doing and very interested in filling their facilities too. So that's where relying on that business case, really understanding your cost structure and being able to put an offer on the table that really responds and puts you in the lead is really important. So we went to a industry trade show. We had done our research. We understood what we needed to be able to make available. Really a small piece of that was financial incentives. Much more important, we knew that they were going to have workforce challenges. We knew that they needed a cost structure at the airport itself in terms of things like landing fees that could help them be successful. We knew that they wanted an active and supportive community. And so we went to this show really prepared to make the case on all of those factors and more. And I drive all that home because it's really, really important to understand your costs and go prepared and go prepared with answers. And that includes, even in this case, we had a board, the Duluth Economic Development Authority, that needed to understand that while this was a beautiful building and less than 15 years old and in great shape to provide the maintenance services that we wanted to provide, we weren't going to be competitive if we went there looking for $10 a square foot for that facility. So what we needed to do was go there seeking a tenant who would provide the much needed maintenance for the facility and really take it over, while at the same time certainly recovering the community's cost of ownership, but that it wasn't going to be a cash cow, that it was going to be, hopefully the best result would be a job generation and creation project. And our commissioners really could understand that, and you know, through some education on our part, and that was a big team to do that, provide that education so that people understood what we were looking for and why. And so we went to the show. We attracted a lot of interest, and luckily for us, our top candidate, AAR, came for a tour shortly after. We visited with them at the show. From there, it was really a case study in a community getting behind a project and helping us as an economic development team succeed. So the local contractors who knew over time that they could be part of a group of suppliers to this company were at the table talking about the services that they provide. The large local employers, including others in the aviation industry, and I'll call out specifically Cirrus Aircraft. Cirrus is manufactured in Duluth, Minnesota. And the folks at AAR went to Cirrus and asked them to talk about the workforce, to talk about the competitive environment there. And the folks at Cirrus did a great job of recognizing that if the aviation industry in our community grew, it was good for everyone. I think they knew they were going to be in a competitive situation for employers and for employees, but to their credit, they stepped up and said, you know what, this is what's good for the whole community. And while it may make us sharpen our pencil and be even better than we already are in the employee side, we're going to do that because it's the right thing to do for the community. So all of you may face that at some time, especially in a time when we do have workforce shortages with specific talents in particular. To have that kind of support from your existing employers, and particularly in industrial projects like this one, is key and a real key to success. So they were one of our partners, and maybe an unlikely partner in some ways, but they definitely came through for us in that way. It's also, I mentioned that many communities were looking for the same thing that we were looking for. So it was a competitive environment. Our state and our region is not a real incentives heavy region. We didn't lead with that. We led with the business case. We led with the ability to get in and be successful in our community. Difficulties, one difficulty in particular, this company had to compete with others in the industry to bring aircraft, to bring providers into that facility. And those providers were looking for absolutely the lowest cost if they could. And right at the 11th hour, we had a competing state that said, we're going to put an incentive on the table of $1 an hour for every hour worked in this facility in another state. Now, as you can imagine, just start doing the math. We're talking about a 400-person operation, 2,000 plus hours in a year of work. That incentive was massive, and they were prepared to do it over a 5-year period. When the company came to us and told us about what their competitor was able to put on the table, we said, look, we have built the business case as best we can. We will seek additional help from the state, but we're not going to come up with that kind of number in our state. We have to be realistic about that. We went back, we did talk to the governor and the governor's staff and the folks at the at Employment and Economic Development. And luckily, because we had partnered on this project all along, because they wanted it for the state as much as we wanted it for the region, and because it really made sense, especially in our community at that time, we were able to put a little more on the table for them. But again, in a not an incentives heavy state, that was a real challenge. But because of our partnerships and time that we spent on it together, we were able to land the deal. So the last thing that I would sort of leave you with as a takeaway, first of all, you have to prepare. You have to know your costs. You have to know the industry and what their competitive challenges are. You have to sell it locally first. So our commissioners needed to understand that we weren't going to be bringing them this massive lease rate for this facility, that we were going to be bringing them a lease rate that would give us the cash flow needed to maintain a great facility, and that was about it. And then we really had to be realistic with the company on only promising what we could deliver. When they came to us in that 11th hour with that challenge, we said, look, if in your minds it comes down to just that, we're probably not going to win on just that. We want to help you look at the whole business case and the whole mix, from energy costs to landing fees to cost of the facility, to our flexibility and ownership of the facility to make this work for you. And we're going to work together in everywhere that we can. And workforce training and development was, of course, an important part of that mix as well. By doing that, we were able to win the project.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story, Brian. At the end, I'm sure people will have plenty of questions for you. A pretty remarkable story you have. Okay, next I would like Lisa, if you want to chat a little bit more about the successes that you have had as well. Lisa, are you there? Did we lose you?
Sorry, my mic was muted. I've been in York County for about 5 years now. And the very first day I started, we had a RFI that came in and so we started putting it together. And it was called Project Mist back then. It's turned into Pellet Technology, but it was like I mentioned earlier, it was a startup. They had been in research and development with a pilot facility for about 5 to 7 years at that point. And lots of money had gone into this. They came in May, figured they'd be closing on ground in the fall and starting construction right away. Through a series of bumps, they ended up selecting the following spring, York. So from the very beginning, none of the timelines were met as we went through this. There was a lot of meetings. I did a lot of partnership introductions to our schools, introductions to our co-ops, all 3 of them in the area, introductions with our ethanol facility. We did a dinner with our ethanol facility, actually, with the management. And this company has a very aggressive timeline. From the get-go, they were looking in a 3-state area. They utilized corn, and York County we're home to 3 seed corn production facilities. So we're very heavy on the seed corn, which made us, where we are incentive light as well, it made us competitive from the supply chain analysis. 2 years into the deal, a week before closing on the property, they said, we've had something come up, and we're not going to be able to close next week. We're going to break our contract for the purchase agreement, which for my investor that had purchased this property for YCDC to develop for industrial development, there was some hard feelings there because he had already pushed the closing back 6 months at that point. My executive committee said, stop working with them. They're never going to get there. And I'm stubborn. I'd call them every month and a half, just checking in. How are things going on? And about 9 months later, they said, we're ready to go. Or we're getting close to being ready to go. And we started doing tours, and I took my executive committee as well as other community leadership, some farmers, the co-ops, the utilities. We went to their pilot facility and did tours. So we got the deal going. They ended up paying more for the land than what I was able to negotiate originally. And so year 3 into the project, we broke ground. They broke ground April 26th, and the next day it started raining and did not stop for about a month. So that added about $800,000 in removing water from their land, cost-wise. So it was fun. Actually, we have a time-lapse. They have a time-lapse video from breaking ground to going. But with the aggressive mindset that they have, they broke ground in October, thought they would be in production, or no, they broke ground in April with the intent of being in production by Halloween, which is aggressive for a production facility, full production facility. And so they purchased enough stover to go through a full year of production. The challenge is we actually didn't hit full production till April. So we've had, it's been a great facility. We've had some odor issues that were not expected because they weren't there in the pilot facility. And they're right on the edge of town. And sometimes the whole community smells like alfalfa, like an ethanol facility would. So there's been a lot of people coming in, people worried about rats and rodents because of the stover, the supply being stored out there. So we've had a lot of education in the community of, you know, this is safe. There's no rodent issues because they have traps. They're working with companies. They did not buy as much stover this year because they overbought last year. And so that's just feeds in a small town to the rumor mill. But it's a good company to have in town. We have 40 employees. Several of them have moved from outside of the area into the county, which is great. That's what we want, bring new people in and grow. Where it started back in 2013 as a $23 million project, it ended up being closer to a $40 million project. So it almost doubled in size. They originally purchased 40 acres and then bought the 59 acres adjacent to it for future expansion and the storage with their stover. But it's been real interesting at the community level. You know, if you bring in a kill factory, you're going to have pushback. This, where it's a value added, and it's added $2 million of additional cash to our local area farmers' pockets. I wasn't expecting the pushback. But people are worried about fires. Stover can't burn. So that was on education as well. It was not in a blighted area. So my one incentive, TIF, we were not able to utilize. They did utilize some state incentives, and my city was able to come up with some cash as well. And then YCDC paid for some legal costs, and we probably put in $7,500, which is minor, and my city put in $77,000. So all in, we landed this project for less than $100,000. And it really came down to the supply chain and our logistics. We have 3 ethanol facilities within 20 miles, and that's one of their inputs. And the corn's right here. So they're able to get majority of their supply chain within a 30-mile radius of our community. So it's been a fun project. I've got to know the team out there very, very well. Our last year, because of the contractors being in town, our sales tax revenue was the highest it had ever been. Actually, our economic impact study for the project, when it was still a $23 million project, showed that it would have a $1 million impact on our sales tax alone. So it's been a great project. It's just been challenging to manage the rumor mill after the project is landed. And we're 2 years almost, we're March. We're 2 years into when they broke ground, and rumors are still going around. Corn prices are lower, but the thing I have really learned through this is when it's their first production facility, you got to expect a lot more bumps than when it's a company that's bringing in another facility and they have facilities already around, because they really have it down. They know what they're doing. We brought in a back office, which is a totally different industry. And it was so simple compared to this manufacturer. Very, very simple. So that is really my manufacturer recruitment story.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. Sorry I'm cutting you off a little bit. We have 3 panelists left to go. If you have questions for Lisa afterwards, please keep those in mind. And then she's a very open individual, so she'll be able to connect with you as well if you have any other questions, I'm sure. So with that being said, we're going to move down to Chuck, who is going to tell you a little bit more about his story.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I will go as quickly as I can. I'm sure there are many questions to be had at the end of the panel. So like several others have discussed, our organization is privately funded. I think that's important when it comes to creating a regional organization so that you don't have to worry about buy-in from each community. One of the things we discussed in the beginning of this organization a couple of years ago was that if one community received a project over another, that of course the other communities might back out of funding. So when I came into this position, I interviewed in front of about 50 private business owners in this region, and one of the questions they asked of me was how long it would be before we announced a project. And keep in mind that this region had never really announced a project ever. They'd never had an economic development organization. I told them to be patient, and I think that's one of the key things as economic developers we have to do is we have to manage our boards and manage our investors and their understanding and patience with our process, because if we're going to be successful long term and create an economy within a region that is sustainable, then you have to have those attributes. You have to be strategic and focused. I mentioned earlier our workforce study. That was really the linchpin of kicking things off and continues to be. We partnered not just with our 9 counties, but all of Eastern Kentucky to make sure that everyone had the resources and research available to be successful beyond us. And we have a partner organization just north of us called the Ashland Alliance. And of course, my communities do not have an interstate. We do not have a navigable river. We have plenty of rail, but no rail on industrial sites. We have 4 industrial sites, but no rail access. So if we were going to truly go after automotive and aerospace related manufacturing, which could replace the wages that these folks had lost in the coal mining industry, and also the folks in the coal mining industry transferred very well into those job skill sets. We knew we'd also have to be able to attract raw material suppliers to some degree. And so we wanted to make sure that Ashland Alliance was very in tune with our strategy so that they could attract those raw material suppliers. So we began sharing information. I know that's typically unheard of, but it's important that you understand that partnering across organizations and bringing in additional counties just from a strategic standpoint is helpful. And what that ended up leading to, the first announcement, actually our first announcement in our region for my organization was 11 months into my tenure here, and it was transportation, heavy truck manufacturing. And then in the middle of last year in June, we had an announcement in the Ashland Alliance area of Brady Industries. It's a $1.5 billion aluminum sheet rolling mill, and it supports very closely our strategy. And our strategies overall, because they were aligned, helped to attract that industry. The workforce study, the fact that we're going after aero and auto, and we had a comprehensive economic development plan around that, was a huge selling point for that company. And obviously, they've become a tremendous partner, even for my organization. So much so that because aerospace was and is a target industry, the next large effort we undertook was to understand our ability to attract aerospace and aviation maintenance firms. We received an Aero-Ready certification through a pair of consultants that I highly regard who began that program. We pushed that to other areas, not just in the state, our border states as well, West Virginia and Ohio, with the intent of creating a business attraction point from the federal government. We currently have rolled that into a federal designation that is designed as an executive order and is currently supported by 2 of the president's cabinet secretaries. And hopefully we will see something move on that this summer. Now, one of the things that I think is key for economic developers in being a leader is making sure that you're bringing the right people together and ensuring that you're transferring information, not all information obviously, but like I said before, we were not expected, and we were in some ways discouraged from working with this organization north of us, Ashland Alliance. I think it's important for us in economic development to show true leadership by bringing people together, both in our region, within what you might call your super region or mega region, as well as from the state. And that's probably the biggest thing that we have done, as well as including our federal delegation, which includes Senator McConnell, Senator Paul, and Congressman Rogers. We've been able to receive federal funding assistance in this region, and we even have a pool of money that we can essentially tap into as a deal closing fund on an annual basis now because of the work of Congressman Rogers and Senator McConnell. So there's a lot of moving parts that have occurred within Eastern Kentucky, but I think really the message I want to get across is that regardless of where you are, the most important thing you can do as an economic developer is to understand your culture within your region and understand how your strategy needs to align with that culture so that you can be successful. For example, we're not going to be going out and attracting call centers. They're low paying. Sure, we have a few of them in the region, but it's not what our people are highly skilled and adept at doing. And we're in an economy right now where we have a competitive advantage because we have over 10,000 people who are waiting in the wings for jobs who can immediately go to work. And it's not just a workforce study that proved that. We attracted an Advanced Manufacturing Institute that is a Haas Technical Center. It's the 12th in the nation. It just opened 2 weeks ago, but we did some test studies with our coal miners, and they were graduating at the top of the class of the folks who were attending this at Vincennes University in Indiana, and were highly sought after by Lockheed Martin. The first 20 we sent through the pilot program were hired by Lockheed Martin, and it was only about an hour and 20-minute drive for them. It proved our workforce study in the case that these coal miners are not only inherently skilled, but can pick up new skills very, very quickly. We also just announced that the ARM Robotics for Manufacturing Institute out of Carnegie Mellon will be joining that as well. So just a few miles up the road from me, we have a 16-week fast-track CNC machinist course with an advanced robotics for manufacturing course starting up there as well. All of this infrastructure obviously going to support our business case for attracting industry. We partnered with Brady Industries out of the Ashland Alliance area. Ashland Alliance, of course, our power provider, AEP, and our organization, and we led an effort to attract and begin recruiting the aerospace manufacturing sector at the Paris Air Show. We went big. The governor of our state saw our plan. Our organization planned the entire thing, developed all the marketing for the entire trip. We met with 27 companies, and yes, we met with the top 10 aerospace manufacturers, CEOs while we were there, and Governor Bevin joined us in Paris for that. We have 2 of those companies who are visiting the region in the next month. Part of that is because we are very keen with follow-up and making sure that these companies are well aware of the progress within this region and understand what the advantages of them locating here are. But 2, we had our largest announcement in December, which falls right in with our target industry sector. A company out of California, Interblue, is an LTO battery manufacturer. Their batteries will be utilized in multiple sectors. One is aerospace. One is a defense application. It's a genset unit. Another is transportation manufacturing. And at the end of the day, what sold them on coming to Eastern Kentucky and investing $372 million and employing 900 here in our region, in a town of 7,000 people, mind you, was the fact that we had a comprehensive workforce analysis that showed exactly what skill sets from the coal mining industry would transfer directly into the job descriptions that they have. Now, like I think it was Brian who mentioned earlier, we were competing against another state in the South. I don't want to name who they were. They did flub their site visit. I've got a horror story of the site visit that I was told by the client that I will eventually put into a book I write one day on what not to do on a site visit. But the state offered $23 million cash to Interblue. Like Brian said earlier, it's very important to understand your costs, your client costs, your target industry costs, and understand what their business case is so that you can help them paint a picture of what their overall cost of doing business within your region is going to be. And one of the most compelling pieces we gave them was a cost analysis that was simply based on wages, workers' compensation, taxes, cost of living, and a couple of other items. that showed that over the first 5 years of operation in our region, they would save over $70 million. So again, research is important, information is important, but the most important thing we can do in economic development is be leaders willing to work across county lines, city lines, and to bring partners and stakeholders together for a strategic vision and actually take action towards that vision in what I like to call results-oriented activity. And that's how our organization focuses, and that's how I tend to work as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Chuck. I really appreciate that. Next up, and you already have one question. Actually, you can probably answer it super fast. But who did the workforce study for you guys?
Del Boyette and his team at Boyette Strategic Advisors.
Excellent. Okay, so for those of you that asked that question in the audience, there you are. Next up, we have Rick, who will talk about his story a little bit, and then we will finish off with Dave.
Well, I'll be quick. I'll be quick to save Dave some time here. As I mentioned earlier, Mills County Economic Development is a relatively new organization, and I've been here 18 months. And 6 months into the process of organizing, identified that we need to have a good product to be able to attract new investment into our area. So we focused on those 3 areas of site development, being the smaller sites under 100 acres, the medium 100 right at 1,000, and then a mega site. We discussed whether we focus on 1, 2, or all of them. And it was an education process, but we decided to focus on all of them, working with our partners such as Mid-American Energy, Iowa Economic Development Authority, and Western Iowa Networks, our fiber provider. So first step, we optioned 288 acres and did the full site due diligence on that 288 acres with the idea of being able to hit both the small and the medium-sized sites for the logistics industry, which that is our primary focus, since we do set with 2 unobstructed interchanges off of Interstate 29 in the Omaha metropolitan area. We master planned 5,600 acres, not all of which will be developable. Some will remain as green space. Some will have service-oriented industries and commercial entities that help facilitate the logistics industry. Within the development, some success that we've had already is we have the Love's Travel Center and then a Lincoln Farm and Home Travel Center that have both, Love's is open and Lincoln's will open up in 2 weeks. Those 2 major national fueling contractors that provide fuel to the logistics industry. So we're able to check that box when attracting the warehouse developers and the logistics companies. Then we are focusing on the mega site, 1,000 acres or more, working hand in hand with the state of Iowa. Some of the difficulties that we've experienced in both of these site developments is just the confidentiality when you're out there trying to negotiate options and put the land control into place. The biggest hurdle was going into those landowners and up front saying, you need to sign an NDA before we will tell you why we're even here. And when you're dealing with a farmer that hasn't been presented anything like this before, it's often difficult for them to just immediately sign. So it's been a process. We're moving forward with the mega site, and as I mentioned, we've got 288 acres under control with another 460 teed up that should be under control here within the next 4 weeks. The infrastructure, we've had to work with multiple utility providers, as I mentioned, Black Hills Energy, Mid-American Energy, and others. Substantial cost to service these areas. But everybody understands that return on investment. Whether it's putting that water line in or the new water tower, they understand that they're going to have users at the end of their line that will have more benefit to them directly as utility customers, but then to the community as a whole, or the county as a whole, in jobs and new tax base. I'd encourage folks to be patient. I think Chuck mentioned that in his presentation. I'd also encourage you, you know, we learn from our failures, both our own failures, but also look at the other groups around you and across the country that are doing a similar project, and learn what where they had their hiccups or their failures or obstacles. And we've done that. I've had board members talk with groups so that we're trying to avoid some of the same issues that those other groups had. Currently, we are in the running for a 1 million square foot warehouse distribution facility that will have 500 jobs and a tax base, or an overall project costing $100 to $120 million. In the case of Mills County, this one project will level out our tax base. Today, the tax base is heavy on agriculture and residential development because of the growth of the folks moving out into our metropolitan area, where if we can attract an industry, it'll even it out, lessening the burden on the homeowner and the ag producer. But then once we get the next one and the next one, it will then become more relative to the industrial tax base. We are also working with a number of national developers that are looking to spec warehouse space. So our hope is that by next year at this time, we will have 2 to 3 facilities built and up that will range in size from 100,000 square feet to 500,000 square feet. And if we're fortunate, we know we're down to the final 2 on this 1 million square footer, that we would have our logistics park well underway.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rick. We have one final panelist. So I'm going to give the screen over to Dave, and after Dave's finished with his presentation, we will open up the floor for questions. So, Dave, you should have an alert for the screen.
Are you seeing the presentation or the PowerPoint?
We are seeing the PowerPoint.
Not the, okay, that's what I was afraid of. I got dual screens and it flopped over to the other screen. Well, it will not move over to my other screen. Bear with me. If anybody knows how to troubleshoot, I would appreciate it. That's,
You know, if you just want to keep it on this view, we can see it fine.
I will have to. All right. Sorry, everyone. So the New Growth Alliance Regional Economic Development Model, the marketing of Northeast Wyoming, that's the primary mission of the New Growth Alliance. We have economic developers within our region to do the legwork, but we needed a marketing arm. The region is a very large region, larger than New Jersey and Delaware combined, or larger than 9 states, the within the United States. 82,000 population, so very low population for the size of surface area that we cover. We're also in the Powder River Basin, which is a coal mining area, very similar to Chuck's area, except for ours are surface mines instead of underground mines. As I talked about earlier, Buffalo, Gillette, and Sheridan are the primary communities. We are publicly funded, not privately funded, which is the opposite of what Chuck's model was. I-90 and I-25 intersect right at Buffalo. Buffalo and Johnson County and Sheridan are both right at the base of the Bighorn Mountains. Gives us a very scenic and beautiful area from which to work on attracting people to. Our partners, so we have Northern Wyoming Community College, Sheridan and Gillette colleges. They have a campus in Buffalo, so they cover our region. Their footprint is our region. Golden Shovel and Smart Solutions partnered with us to design this organization and to implement for the first year. Wyoming Business Council funded us a planning grant, of which the Golden Shovel and Smart Solutions group contracted with us to put in place procedures, policies, everything that we needed to be able to move forward from a marketing perspective. They contracted with research consultants, International, RCI, and they did a lot of our lead generation for this first year. And then 80 Advantage is our new contractor that we brought on board to lead us forward going forward. One of the things that attracted us to them was their new workforce component that they're implementing. So we're excited about that and excited to continue our momentum. Strategic direction. We wanted to make our message loud and clear. And a lot of people don't know who we are, where we are. I-90, I-25 intersect in Buffalo. Buffalo's population is under 5,000. I tell people we're probably one of the smallest communities at the intersection of two relatively major interstates. We want to step up and compete. We were not competing at any level, really, within the region. We're an energy-based state, and which is commodities, and as most of you are aware, commodities go up and down, and our economy goes up and down right with them. So diversification was one of the primary reasons for creating this regional effort as well. Making the sale, how do you close it? That was a part of our effort. Diversify, I talked about that, and maximize the return on the investment. Having a plan in place, and Smart Solution and Golden Shovel set us up very well, in my opinion, for the future. We have lead generation process handling, or a handling process in place, so we know exactly what the process is. We put out RFPs as a region, and then if that project comes and wants to look at us regionally, we take it as a region. If it goes to Sheridan or it goes to Gillette, at that point it's their project. We step back from a regional perspective. We support them when needed. If they call us in, we come in, but we let them close that deal so that each individual community has a stake in it. And it's not always smooth, but having everything in place from a policies, procedure standpoint will at least give you that base from which to operate. I'm not going to go through all of these. I know we're short on time. Bottom line is, within 12 months, here's where we were at. We had 134 leads. We had quarterly contact, which is a warm leads, for 26. Our hot leads, we had 15. And what we called our cool leads or cooler leads, we had 93 of those. Out of that, our second RFP that we responded to the Wyoming Business Council to was for a project at that time, started out as Project Arms, went to Project Enterprise, and was announced here very recently. The big win for us was Weatherby announcing their corporate and manufacturing relocation from California. There'll be a 100,000 square foot facility, 75 to 100 jobs, $12 million plus incentive package. State will be building them, or the community. The state is giving a grant to the community shared to build them a facility, and they will lease it to them for 5 years, at which time the company will have the option to buy the facility, less the lease payments at any time at that point. This is a great opportunity for our region, and it's exciting without a doubt. And I'll play a short video here for you all. A little bit of lag here. I apologize.
Dave, just a heads up, we can't hear any sound on this.
What was that?
We can't hear any sound on the video.
All right, let me try it again. Can you hear that?
More than just a
Yeah.
product, you know, just a firearm. It's a passion. It's a family legacy. Something that's been around since 1945. My grandfather started wedding to inspire the dreams of mothers and shooters. It's my privilege to be able to carry that on to the third generation. Hello, my name's Adam Weatherby. I'm the president of Weatherby. I lead a team of people in a relatively small factory, high quality rifle, shotguns, and ammunition. And I do the same as my father and grandfather have done before, and that is to put quality products. Passionate outdoorsmen who love to chase animals around and harvest their own meat, who love to head to the range and do some blanket, and we're just a part of that industry, have been for a long time, and it truly is an honor and privilege to be able to lead the team of Weatherby moving forward. We really looked at a lot of different states that we could potentially move to out west. Wyoming stood out for a lot of reasons, but one of the main ones is they made it very attractive for us. Ultimately, we're a business, and we need to be able to continue to function to do what we do. I actually got a call from the governor who said, we want Weatherby in Wyoming. And you don't get that from a lot of states. So the governor made all the way down to his Wyoming Business Council staff to the local folks here in Sheridan on the CEcD board. We have felt a very warm welcome to the state of Wyoming. And we know that the Cowboy State is a place for Weatherby to be in. You know, a lot of people haven't been to Sheridan, Wyoming. If you haven't, you're missing out. It's just gorgeous, but it's not just about the outdoors. A lot of it's about the people. More and more is that people here, other business owners, other manufacturers, people here at Sheridan College, in the community. It's just a really warm group of people. We're excited about hiring some great talent here in Sheridan. We're excited about recruiting talent to Sheridan, having this be a place where we can really grow our business moving forward. Ultimately, we're looking to grow Weatherby, and I think Sheridan is a perfect place for us to do that. Freedoms that we can have here in Wyoming is a huge reason why we chose Wyoming. We know moving forward that we need to be able to do what we're going to do and not be restricted by the government. No, that's not going to take place in Wyoming. We're real thankful for that. You know, we're excited to join great partners in the industry, folks like Magpul and HiViz that have already made the jump to Wyoming due to its, you know, great tax climate, low cost of living, great workforce, and so we think we're joining a great team here, and I think in years ahead, Wyoming's going to really even grow more and more as it's a state already with more guns per capita. It's a great place for us to be, and we think others are going to join us too. A lot of unknowns as we look towards the future. A lot of unknowns for Weatherby. We got a lot of great visions and plans and strategies, but what we know is this: we're going to be assembling a great workforce, a great community, a great state. I honestly believe as the third generation of Weatherby that the best is yet to come for us.
All right, so that was our big win. Needless to say, for our region, it's huge. It's not something that this region has experienced ever before, and the direct benefits and the follow-up potential business attraction that is projected to occur has the potential of being very tremendous to our region as well, and begins our road for diversification of our economy, which is desperately needed within our area. So with that, that's my presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dave. I don't know if any of you have ever had a chance to get up to that area, but Buffalo and Sheridan are some of my favorite places on earth. So if you're ever in that neck of the woods, make sure you check it out. So we are over on time. I appreciate those of you who have stayed on the call. If you have any questions, please submit them into the chat box and I will moderate those. And so we'll try to limit that to about the next 5 minutes. So if you have a question, please type it in. And then as well as we will send out the thank you email with some added information from the presentation. So if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box. Give it a few minutes. While we're waiting on questions to come in, I just want to say a final thank you to the panelists. We really appreciate you taking the time to tell some of your stories and address some of the leadership that you have accomplished in your communities. And we are looking forward to some of the feedback. And hopefully those of you in the audience learned a little bit and took some things away. Here at Golden Shovel, we're always looking for feedback. So if you have anything or questions for us, please let us know. My contact information is on the screen, as well as our representatives from the Western and Eastern region. So if you have anything that you would like to send us, let us know. I have not seen any questions come in. So anything final from the panelists?
I'd just like to say I appreciate Golden Shovel asking us to be on here today. This is Chuck, by the way. I'm happy anytime to chat with anyone who happened to be on the panel. There's a lot of information out there about our organization. You can find us on all forms of social media, thanks to Golden Shovel, and of course YouTube and online. So I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it.
Yeah, this is Rick. I'd echo the same thing. Folks, feel free to email me or contact me as well. And thanks to Golden Shovel for facilitating this and helping us.
I would echo that. I'm open for any phone calls that people have, or emails or text, whatever. And thank you guys for facilitating.
Great. Well, thank you again so much. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I just wanted to say quick thank you for the opportunity, and also the other panelists, thank you very much. That was interesting to hear everybody's story. Thank you.
Yeah. And I echo the same. Thank you very much.
All right, perfect. We did have one quick note to send out the video that Dave played. I am sure he will be willing to do that, so we'll make sure that we send the link to that during the thank you email. So we appreciate all of you who attended. Thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists. You guys were great. And then just be looking for the email from us within the next 24 hours that has the webinar recording and everything else like that. And you can always find these webinars on our Golden Shovel page. Just go over into our webinar section and you can see all of our archived webinars. So thank you again. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And we look forward to seeing you again at our next expert webinar.